Hello gamers, Powered Heal here. So today we're going to talk about the Naxx boss fights, and we're going to break these videos down into basically each wing, and then the final one's going to be Saffron and KT. And I feel like it's just going to be easier to do that since there's so many bosses in this raid, rather than just doing a huge video. It'd be really annoying, right? Even if you timestamp it. So we're going to spread it out a little bit. And we're going to cover Spider Wing first, and this is a pretty easy wing. So we'll kind of get right into it and talk about things. I'll do some quick drawings here, but nothing's going to be too elaborate, especially for this wing. So Anub'Rekhan is the first boss, or Anub'Rekhan, I forget exactly how it's even spelled, to be honest. But it's basically like a circular type room, and he's going to be like the X, right? And he's going to be tanked over here. He's going to have some ads, which will get cleaved onto him, right? We can change the color, I guess. So put the little red ads. So they're usually like tanked kind of like behind him. They all get cleaved down. It'll be really fast if you're in a good guild, even a moderate guild with a lot of melee. And basically you have kind of like the range stack back here, right? Now, you basically just want to be kind of spread out in this stack, because what the boss does is he does, and this is going to be the thing that is like the primary source of damage on this fight, is Impale. So Impale is a thing where he shoots spines, or like I guess little spikes that kind of go back towards players in the raid. So it's going to target some player. I think it can target ranged and melee. So when it targets a melee, you know, theoretically your melee should be sort of like loosely spread behind the boss so they don't all get hit. But of course, you know, all the melee are going to just be on top of each other like a bunch of primates. So expect a lot of them to get hit. But it's basically either going to target a melee or ranged and go out from the boss in like some direction. So I'll just say that it's like, this is like a spiky line here, this is like a spiky line here, right? It's going to basically target players and go out like that. You just want to heal them when this happens, because they actually take fall damage as well. So it can actually do quite a bit of damage because the Impale hits pretty hard. Right. Obviously, if a ton of people get, like, if the whole raid, like, if you're running, like, 30 warriors and they're all, like, needle stacked on each other and they all get hit, somebody's probably going to die. Right. I'm not entirely sure about the damage. Like, maybe if you're, like, really flasked up and stuff like that, it's okay. But that's just going to be, like, the major source of damage in this fight. Also, when you kill the ads, they spawn a bunch of little, very little ads. These need to be, like, tanked immediately and killed, like, sapper down, AoE down or something like that, because if they get onto your healers, it's a big problem, right? So not good there. And also keep in mind that any player that dies, so if somebody dies to Impale, or multiple people die to Impale, you spawn a bunch of spiders. So this is like an incredibly easy fight, but it goes south very quickly if people do like really stupid things, like they're super clumped on each other and they all get like collateral together, because now all of a sudden 3 or 4 people die to the Impale, and you have like 15 spiders running around, and they're probably not going to get taunted immediately. Like, nobody's going to challenge or demo shout or whatever, so they're going to run immediately to the healers, and it's going to be an absolute nightmare. Nobody's probably going to even think twice to go back into the range cloud to actually pick them up, and it'll be a disaster. So yeah, just don't let people die. Try and stay like loosely spread. And the other main ability of this fight is Locust Swarm. So it's basically just like the boss does a ton of damage in like a radial around him. You can think of it like that, right? Like something like this, right? It's actually quite big. But basically he slows down during this time. So the idea is that the tank is going to kite him in a direction. Like you can go like this, right? Or you can go like that. It doesn't really matter. I think you'll probably get like 1 Locust Swarm from most guilds, and then the boss will die. Some guilds, I think, could probably kill him before the Locust Swarm even goes out. This is a very trivial boss if you know, just don't everybody clump up on the same spot. Pre-shielding can be decent here on Priest specifically, because you know you're going to get the Impales at some point. The problem is you don't really know who it's going to go on, right? So if for some reason, like, you have really slow kill time on this boss, then, you know, you might want to consider not pre-shielding because you don't want to go I guess, but you really shouldn't have many mana problems on this boss, so you can just toss some pre-shields out and hope that they actually find the right targets, right? But yeah, very easy boss. Not really much to it, right? So we're just gonna move on to the next one. I probably delete that a different way, but YOLO. Okay, so next boss is Faerlina. So Faerlina is another kind of easy boss. I'm just gonna draw like a random room here. I don't even know like the size of the room. I think there's like what it is. There's ad packs of like acolytes before her. You kill those, then it's her and a bunch of things on like a stage up here. Basically, it's like a circular stage, and she's gonna be like in the center, right? And then she's gonna have little ads kind of on the side, like so here, right? And there's different types of ads that do different things. The only one that you're gonna have to worry about as a priest is, I believe, the acolyte is what it's called, and you have to mind control it, or one player is gonna mind control these. Now, the reason for that is because Faerlina periodically does an enrage, where she hits a lot harder. I think her damage might increase as well, or her cast speed. She might cast things more frequently. So basically, she hits the tank pretty hard. She's going to hit harder when she enrages. And something to consider in Naxx, honestly, I was going to mention at the start of the video, is all the bosses at this stage in the game kind of hit pretty hard, right? Now, some of them are more notable for hitting hard than others, like Patchwork, let's say, or something, right? But all of them still hit reasonably hard, so you do need to be really watching the tanks on some of these fights, and even fights you wouldn't expect. Like, this is a humanoid caster boss, but it does melee pretty hard. So just something to keep in mind there. And when she enrages it does hit even harder. Now, I'm pretty sure you can do this fight without cleansing the enrage on her. But, you know, if you want to be safe, you should probably just cleanse the enrage. So how do you do that? Well, you mind control one of the acolyte ads, okay? And it has one ability, which basically sacrifices itself to dispel the enrage on the boss. Now, the trick here is you need to be close to the boss. I think it's a 10-yard range, but just get really on top of her, right? There's no reason to try and, like, figure out if you're, you know, oh, am I exactly 10 yards or whatever. Just walk onto her and use the ability to dispel the enrage. And I think you need to be standing still as well. So if you're like running and trying to hit the ability, I don't think it actually goes off. So yeah, just walk up to her, stand still, press the button, and that'll cleanse the enrage. It also slows her poison volley, which is one of the main sources of AoE damage in this fight. She does a poison volley as well as a rain of fire. So that's helpful just to reduce the damage going out. The main issue on this fight, outside of like the enrage, is just people getting kind of gibbed by poison volley and rain of fire, right? If you're in one of them, not really a big deal, but if a volley goes out while you're in a rain of fire, it's quite a bit of damage. I mean, you can just protection potion as well, right? Having a greater fire protection potion up for this boss just makes it trivially easy, so that won't happen to you ever. Obviously, nature protection is great. Pre-shielding is good, but again, it's kind of like, you know, when's the volley going to come out, right? I mean, it's worth pre-shielding if you can go into the fight with 100% mana. But again, in terms of, do you want to be shielding throughout the entire fight for when the volley comes out? I mean, kind of, but only if you have the mana for it, right? So if you're in a pretty mediocre guild, it's probably better to just play it by ear and reactively heal it with something like Prayer of Healing, something of that nature. So Faerlina, pretty easy fight, right? We will... Oops. Okay. And the last fight is Maexxna, or Maexxna. Let's redraw this here. Okay, so this is another circular room, right? Now this boss does a couple interesting things. So we'll put the boss in the middle. It basically has to be tanked facing away because it does a cone. It does a high amount of damage. You don't want to be in front of the boss. Generally speaking, bosses in WoW in general, if you're new and watching this video, don't want to be in front of the boss. Typically speaking, there's some exceptions to this, but pretty safe rule. And for a lot of the bosses in Naxx, don't want to be in front of the boss. A lot of them have some type of ability, whether it be like an actual breath or a cone attack or potentially a cleave. So unless there's a really good reason, don't be in front of the boss. Now, what Maexxna's main thing that she kind of does is she web wraps people. And when they get web wrapped, they go to like the corners of the room and they get put up on the wall. And ranged has to DPS them down because I don't believe melee can actually hit them. Maybe incorrect on that, but she'll basically cocoon people to the wall, elevated, so sort of like not on the ground level, but like a little bit higher. And it does AoE damage, well, not AoE, periodic damage to them while they're in the web wrap. And then when they break the wrap, they fall to the ground. So they also take a little bit of fall damage. So typically speaking, you don't necessarily have to be super on the ball with these if the range are on the ball, because they break them quick. The player kind of falls back down and then goes back to the group, because the melee are all going to be here, right? So you're going to, all the range are going to be like around here. The melee are going to be here on the boss's butt. And then as these players kind of get broken out, they either go back to the melee or they go back to the range stack and they get healed there. Now, I think it's worth it to play on the periphery as a healer. So you're going to, like, you want to be in range of healing the tank, but you want to try and be next to, you don't want to be like dead center necessarily maybe. And that's because, you're more apt to be able to reach these targets if you're closer to like one of the edges, as long as you can still hit the tank. And in the event that they don't get broken out or they get broken out late and they're really low, it's nice to be able to actually heal them and make it so they don't die, right? So pretty easy fight overall. The boss also does a mechanic called web wrap, which basically wraps the entire array to like stun you kind of like for 8 seconds. So what you want to do is you want to basically have HOTS rolling on the tank, and if you have DBM, that actually gets sometimes it's a little funky with how the add-ons work. If you have an add-on that's accurate and does give you the cooldown of a web wrap, then you can kind of plan for that, right? You can pre-shield the tank, stuff like that. The problem is sometimes the add-ons show the cooldown of the ability, and it doesn't always get used immediately once it comes off cooldown, right? So it's a good kind of barometer to base your actions around, sort of, but it's not going to be exact necessarily all the time. I don't think, at least this one might be. Some bosses do use certain abilities off cooldown. I actually kind of forget with this boss, but basically, when web wrap looks like it's coming off cooldown, you want to have HOTS on the tanks, like renew, potentially pre-shield, stuff like that, because you need the tank to survive the 8 seconds, before the next batch of heals can come in. And then obviously you want like instants and stuff once you get out of the 8 seconds if the tank is low. You can also use tank cooldowns if it's really bad, like shield wall and stuff like that. The boss enrages at 30%, so typically what you want to do is you want to time it so you don't get a web wrap. You want a web wrap and then you push the boss, right, so that the tank is not taking tons of damage while the entire raid is web wrapped. You can Petri the wrap, but obviously that's not really a pragmatic thing for most people to do. You can Pally Bubble it, I believe. I think that's a thing. So that's strong, but I don't think other classes really have a way to get out of it. I don't think you can trinket it or anything like that even. So it's a little bit annoying. Just keep HOTS on the tank and be ready to heal him after the wrap takes place. There's also a Mortal Strike mechanic. I think it's like 90% reduced healing. It's a poison, so it has to be cleansed by poison cleansers. And yeah, that's basically Maexxna. So pretty easy fight overall. The Spider Wing in general is pretty easy. So it's a good way to get some nice loot. Some of the loot from there is pretty good. Drops like BIS Mage Weapon and BIS Melee Trinket, and some, I think Maexxna at least drops some decent tier for priests and stuff like that. So pretty easy, and we'll move on to the next wings, the next video. So thank you guys for watching, and I will talk to you later.